we're going to talk about a different strategy. I call it the long way, and it's a much less intensive, but it also takes longer way of toilet training. And there are four and I'm going to talk about daytime training, and then after I'm finished, Katie's going to spend a chunk on nighttime training. And in daytime training, we talk about 4 phases. Daytime pee training or urination training, of which there are 2 phases, what I call trip training and self-initiation training, and daytime bowel training, daytime bowel trip training, and daytime bowel self-initiation training. So those are the 4 phases. I'm going to spend most of my time on daytime trip training, but the others are really, really important, and especially the self-initiation training that I'm going to talk about today, you may want to weave into the self-initiation part of rapid toilet training, and Katie has mentioned that already. So let's talk about phase 1. By the end of phase 1, which is urination trip training, here's what you've taught, or here's what the individual has learned. The individual has learned to pee when taken to the toilet by someone else at regular intervals in the training setting. So if I'm training at home, when I take him to the toilet at regular intervals, at home, he pees. And the rest of the time, he's dry between trips in the training setting. So I could train at home, and he's still having accidents at school. I could train at school, and he's still having accidents at home. If I want training to occur so that he's not having accidents anywhere, I need to train in both settings. A question that often comes up is, do I need to train in both settings simultaneously? Ideally, sure. In practical terms, it's not necessary. And those of you who are behavior analysts know that this is because of a phenomenon called stimulus control. What happens is that the person learns that in this environment I behave this way, and in that environment I behave another way. So, for example, many of us perhaps have learned that at a party we behave one way, but in church or synagogue or temple we behave very differently than at a party. We know how to behave in the 2 different environments. And that's what happens when we don't train simultaneously. What I learn is, at school, here's the rules, here's the schedule. I don't pee in my pants, I go to the bathroom on a regular basis, blah, 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 I pee in the toilet. But at home, where I haven't been trained, that doesn't happen. So if I want it to happen in both environments, I need to train in both environments. That also goes for kids who spend some time in one-parent homes and another time, some of the rest of the time in another parent's home. So there's joint custody here. You can be trained at mom's house but not at dad's house, trained at dad's house but not at mom's house. If I want dryness to occur in both places, I need to occur in both places. It doesn't have to happen simultaneously. Ideally it does, but it's not necessary. So I'm belaboring this point because often school folks will say to me, we want to train Sally at school, but, you know, mom and dad are like, you know, forget it, we can't do this. And that makes sense to me, frankly, because mom and dad have been trying to do this probably for a couple of years now, and it hasn't worked. And they're like, you've got to be kidding me. I gave up. School is like keen to go. So fine, train at school, and then when you find a formula for training that works at school, teach mom and dad how to do that, and they could do that at home, right? So it's not necessary to train simultaneously in both environments, although in the grand scheme of things, it would be ideal. Anyway, at the end of phase 1, the person is dry in the training setting in between trips to the toilet. The person does not yet ask to go to the toilet or to go on his or her own, so they're not self-initiating necessarily, right? You still have to take them. doesn't stay dry in non-training settings, which I've already said, and may continue to need assistance with the other parts of toileting, pulling pants up and down, wiping, flushing, hand washing. Those are separate behavior chains that you can always teach after you've achieved dryness in the training setting. So that's what we're going for in phase 1. One of the biggest differences between rapid toilet training and the long way is the question of how often do you take the person to the toilet during trip training. In rapid toilet training, there's a schedule, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, blah, 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 like Katie talked about yesterday. Here, you need to figure that out, which requires, I'm really sorry, math. You have to do some math. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to do that. This is the individualization that's really, really important. You cannot pick an arbitrary amount of time to take the person to the toilet. So often what I see in schools is, well, we take Johnny at lunchtime and then we take him before recess and then we take him at the end of the day and he's wet all day. Yeah, that's because you just picked an arbitrary amount of time for the training interval. You can't do that. You have to figure it out for the person you are training. So here's what you're going to do. For 5 days or 7 days, somewhere, a week, in the training environment, you're going to check the individual every 30 minutes to see if he or she is wet or dry. It's okay for the person to wear a diaper or pull up during this part of the training as long as you can tell wet from dry. If you can't tell if the person's wet or dry when you check them every 30 minutes, you have to put them in underwear for this phase because you have to know the answer. If the person's dry, you're just going to mark it on your baseline data sheet, which I'm going to show you in a second. If the person's wet, you change them quickly, neutrally, right? And we're back on track. Don't take them to the toilet. Don't do anything else. All you're doing is checking. And you're going to record either W for wet or D for dry on a data sheet. Here's a data sheet. So you can see that on November 27th, so this is a person who woke up at 7:30 in the morning, most days. We don't care whether he's wet or dry at 7:30 because that happened at night, so that doesn't count. The first time I checked that counts is at 8 o'clock. And you can see this person was wet at 8 o'clock, wet at 10:30, wet at 11:30, wet at 2 o'clock, wet at 2:30, and so forth and so on. On November 28th, he was dry at 8 o'clock, wet at 8:30. You can see what happened. I forgot to check him here, so okay. Here he slept in. Apparently it was a weekend. So he didn't wake up till 8:30, so I checked, don't count that. Here's, okay, so you can see what happened. And here he went to bed early, right? So this is what I've done for 5 days. I've checked every half hour, wet, dry. I missed a few times because, I don't know, whatever. That's okay, my bad. All right, so there's my data. So now I have wets and dries. Now comes the math. Brace yourself. I want to calculate the average length of time overall that the person can stay dry. How am I going to do that? I'm going to add up the number of hours in which I recorded data every day. I'm going to add up the number of W's. I'm going to divide the number of W's by the number of hours by the number of W's. So if I recorded for 6 hours and there were 6 W's, that means that on average, he peed every hour. If I record for 6 hours and there were 2 W's, that means that on average, he peed every 3 hours. He was wet every 3 hours. If I recorded for 6 hours and there were 12 W's, that means that he peed on average 0.5 hours every half hour, which is 30 minutes, okay? Here's what it looks like on the data sheet. So here's the data I showed you before. the total number of hours that I recorded data on November 27th from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night was 13 hours. See it? If I add up all the W's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there were 8 wets. 13, A divided by B. Oops, sorry. This should be A. This should be B. My bad. 13 divided by 8 is 1.62. Don't worry about the 6.2. We're going to get there. This should be A. This should be B. I made a mistake. I'm really sorry. 13 hours on this day, 7 wets. 13 divided by 7 is 1.85. 12 hours on this day, because he was asleep for this chunk, 12 hours, 7 wets. 12 divided by 7 is 1.71. 11 and a half hours on this day, because he was asleep here and he went to bed early. 11 and a half divided by 8 is 1.43. And 12 and a half hours, we count, if I screw up, sorry, if I miss, you count that anyway, because he was awake. Right? 12 and a half hours, 6 wets, 2.08. Right? So there's a little bit of math. You need a calculator. I don't expect you to do long division here. Get out your calculator. That's the way it looks. Okay, so I've now figured out that on each day, on average, how often does this person pee? But I'm not done yet. You following me? I hope so. Now, I want to figure out across all 5 days, what's the average? So I'm going to add up the daily averages, divide by 5 days, because that's how long I recorded data, and I get 1.235 hours. What the heck is 0.235 hours, you might ask? Good question. I need to convert that to minutes. So I take that decimal, I multiply it by 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour, and I find out that 0.235 hours equals 14 minutes. So now I know that this person, on average across all 5 days, is dry for 1 hour and 14 minutes. In other words, he pees about every 1 hour and 14 minutes. So the initial training interval for this person would be, let's call it 1 hour 15 minutes, just to make it easy. So my starting training interval is 1 hour 15 minutes. I'm going to take this person to the bathroom every 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay? So you think, well, why can't I just take him every half hour? Because he doesn't need to pee every half hour, right? I mean, you're not giving him extra liquid in this procedure like you did in rapid toilet training. I almost said forcing additional liquid, and that would have been a big mistake because you never, ever, ever, ever forced liquids in rapid toilet training. But here, you're not giving him additional liquid. He's drinking the same amount he usually does. And what this tells you is, on average, if he drinks the same amount as he usually does, he has to pee every hour and 15 minutes. So if you take him every half hour, you're actually working harder than you need to. And you're going to get a lot of places where he's not going to be able to pee because there's not enough urine in his bladder. Hour and 15 minutes, that's the sweet spot for this kid. Let's go back to our data sheet. This should be A, this should be B. I don't know how it got changed. I'm really sorry. So here's what we had before. Here's 13 hours from our data sheet, 8 wets. On average, A divided by B is 1.62. These are all the numbers I showed you before. Now I'm going to take these numbers, I'm going to add them together, 1.62 plus 1.85 plus 1.71 plus 1.43 plus 2.08, and divide by the number, so the total C by the number of days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8.69, that's all these numbers added together, divided by 5 is 1.73. Now I need to find out, what does 0.73 mean? I multiply 0.73 by 60 to convert to minutes. 0.73 times 60 is 43.8 minutes, which is really like 44 minutes. So my final interval for this person is 1 hour, here's the 1 hour, 44 minutes. Let's call it 1 hour, 45 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to take this person to the bathroom at 8 o'clock, at 9:45, at 11:30, at 1:15, and so forth and so on. And what I know is that when I take him, chances are pretty darn good he's going to have to pee in the toilet. Maybe he has an accident, that's okay. Maybe he doesn't, but this is the sweet spot for this person. 1 hour, 45 minutes. I'm thinking that some of you might have some questions, but I'm hoping that I was clear enough so that there aren't a lot of you here. It's really important to do this because here's your individualization for this person. Here's your individualization, right? You can't know for that person how often to take them. All you know is for this person how often to take them. For that person, it might be every 30 minutes. For that person, it might be every 45 minutes. But for this person, it's every hour and 45 minutes.